Hello, friends. Good morning or evening or afternoon, wherever you are. This is a voice check. Can you hear me? How do I come in? Is the video okay? The audio okay? Hello, Charles Lee, Matthias. Janta. Welcome. We'll give it a minute or two for everybody to come on in. Okala, Nicole, good morning.
You want me to silence that phone? Oh.
Yeah, if you get, yeah. Rocky Barua. I like it. Hello, Rocky. Barua, that is a Bangladeshi name, if I'm not mistaken. Hello, Chris. All right, I think we're good to get started. All right, friends. So today we have Aya Soma has given me the joy to, for the next 4 Fridays, talk about probably my favorite thing to talk about, Satipatthana. So today we're going over the first of the 4 Satipatthana, Kayanupassana. But I do want to give a little bit of an introduction of Satipatthana beforehand. So Satipatthana is, you could say, the Buddha's gift to the world. You know, there before the Buddha, many people in all kinds of different places in the world had various types of meditation, and they practiced various things, and they could get into the formless attainments, or some people call them the formless jhanas. They could get all into these deep states of samadhi, but they were missing the thing. They were missing the thing that allowed them to develop a mind state of vipassana, to see things as they are. And this was what the Buddha gave us. This is what the Buddha found, and then what he taught. Satipatthana is just that. Listen to the introduction of Satipatthana. There is, monks, this direct way for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and distress, for the disappearance of pain and sadness, for the gaining of the right path, and the realization of nibbana. That is to say, the foundations of mindfulness. So let's do some Pali class a little bit here. So what is Satipatthana? Hello, Ian and Bella. Welcome. So sati is the word that, the Pali word, which is most often translated as mindfulness. When a Buddhist person talks about mindfulness, usually they're talking about sati. Although a case can be made that the term that we understand as mindfulness is more than just one Pali word. That's why often in the sutras you'll see sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension. You'll see yoniso manasikara, etc. But that's off to the side. So sati means mindfulness, also means recollection, to be able to recall. You know, at the time of the Buddha, the Brahmins memorized the Vedas. right? So they had good sati to be able to memorize so many things. And also Buddhist monastics, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis for hundreds of years, even to this day, although it's not as common, memorize the suttas, right? Memorize the teachings. So you have to have good sati for that. So this word sati has this double meaning. Patthana, sometimes it's translated as base, sometimes it's translated as foundations or establishment. But it also can be translated as, one of the meanings of this word is starting point. So what the Buddha is saying here with this word is, this is the starting point for the development of sati. This is the starting point for the development of mindfulness, for training your mind to be able to investigate and to understand and to see deeply the experiences through the mind and the body. Satipatthana can be viewed as a toolbox. There's lots and lots of different tools in Satipatthana. There's meditations, there's contemplations, there's investigations, there's all these kind of various tools. And these tools can be applied to various experiences that we have. If you practice and develop Satipatthana very well, it's like you carrying around a toolbox with you. And whatever experience you have in the world, you can say, now I should use this tool for this experience. It's a very, very valuable, very important thing to develop. Just in the past 3 weeks, I've been asked 2 or 3 times, what's your favorite sutta? And that's hard to answer, because I've said this is one of my favorite suttas to about 30 or 40 at least. But if I had to choose one, it would be Satipatthana. Why? Because it's the direct path for the purification of beings. If this is all you had of all the Buddha's teachings, it would be mostly enough. Mostly. I wouldn't say quite, but mostly. So this is like the premier sutta of how to practice, how to do bhavana, cultivation of the mind. So let's start out with the introduction here. So I'm on Sutta Central just to use Bhante Sujato's translation. So after the line of, this is the direct path for the purification of beings, so the Buddha says, what for? It's when a mendicant meditates, observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of feelings, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. They meditate and observe an aspect of the mind, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of principles, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. Now, I wonder if I can do something. Let's see. We're not reading Satipatthana straight, but for those of you who want to kind of follow along, I'll just put the link to the sutta. So the very first one is Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. Anapanasati and Satipatthana are interlinked. They're wed. In the Satipatthana Sutta, you see, under Kayanupassana, Anapanasati. And when you go to Anapanasati Sutta, you can look towards the back and you see how Anapanasati fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. These two things, these two practices are used together. They're fused. Right? When we sit on the cushion, perhaps mostly we're practicing Anapanasati, but you can also practice Satipatthana. But when you get off the cushion, that's where Satipatthana really kicks in. You can practice Satipatthana no matter what you're doing, as long as you're awake. Whether you're at work, taking care of your kids, driving, exercising, no matter what, there's not one waking experience, activity that you can do that you cannot apply Satipatthana to. Every single conscious experience you have, you can apply Satipatthana to. It's a very important thing to understand. It's a very important mindset to develop. So that you don't think, oh, well, I do my meditation when I sit on the cushion, and then I get up and I go about my day. No. Quote unquote meditation, the Buddha's teaching on how to develop the mind, doesn't stop as long as you're awake. When you go to sleep, you can't really do much. Although even like in Tibet and some traditions, they say you can do things when you're sleeping. That's up in the air. But as long as you're awake, as long as you can do activities, you can develop, practice, and use Satipatthana to understand what's going on in your mind and body and to act skillfully in the world. Very, very important. So, to explain briefly as we go along, so we'll cover the first one, Kaya. Kaya is body. Nupassana means to reflect, to contemplate, to investigate. And so what this means is, sometimes this is translated as to contemplate a body within the bodies, or within the body. Bhante Sujato's translation translates it as an aspect of the body. Bhante Analayo is very similar as well in this. So what this means is that the Buddha, under each of the patthanas, gives you a set of tools, a set of places to put your mindfulness, like a lighthouse, right? With the shining light that moves around, right? So today we're going to focus on the body. Focus your sati on the body today. And so the Buddha gives us a variety of practices to what? To understand what this body is at its deepest level. To know this body with pajanati. You see this word all over the suttas, but very much, especially in Satipatthana, you'll see this word pajanati. Pajanati means to know, but it doesn't mean you read it in the book and you know it. This is not an intellectual knowing. This is a very deep, experiential, insightful knowing. To know very, very deeply. That's pajanati. So when we practice Satipatthana, that is the goal. To know very deeply. And so the first part of Kayanupassana in the Satipatthana Sutta is Anapanasati. Following as the breath breathes in, and as the breath breathes out. The Buddha in Anapanasati Sutta says that the breath is a body among the bodies. So this is why Anapanasati is in this body section. As we follow the breath in and out, and we get distracted and we come back, and we get distracted and come back, and we keep following the breath, this allows us to understand the nature of our mind and body. It also allows us to train our mind and body to develop tranquility, calmness, peacefulness of mind and body. And then this will allow us to see things very deeply, allow us to understand with the mindset of vipassana. So this is why it's very important. And if you have like breathing issues and things like that, like myself with allergies and various obstructions, when you try to follow your breath, you can learn all about the body, right? In that way. So practicing this is very important. It's very skillful to practice Anapanasati. And as I said, Anapanasati, in the Anapanasati Sutta, you can see that this also fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. Because when you are practicing mindfulness of breathing, you can understand Vedana, feeling. You can understand Chitta, the mind. You can understand Dhamma, phenomena, principles. So Anapanasati is very important to practice. The next is the four postures. So the Buddha wants us to be very well aware, pajanati, of when we are in the various postures. This is why I say that Satipatthana is whatever you're doing, no matter what you're doing. So what are the four postures? Sitting down, standing, walking, and lying down. To know very deeply, what is the feeling? What is the sensation? What is it like that the body is sitting on a cushion? What is it like as the body sitting on a comfortable couch? What is it like when the body's lying down? What is it like when the body is moving? To understand very deeply how this body is positioned. So this is a very, very simple, in a way, this is actually probably the most simple mindfulness practice. Because even Anapanasati, trying to follow the breath can be very subtle, not easy to see. But the position your body's in, that's very gross. It's very obvious and easy. So you can even just like, okay, what is this position that my body's in? To understand the posture. This is why when I do a guided meditation, for the first 10 minutes or so, I do a body scan and I try to guide the people in understanding how small imbalances in the body, in the posture, can cause pain and unpleasant feelings later on. And as you practice this over time for years and years and years, you become so, you can understand exactly how there's your butt is sitting a little bit off on the cushion. This is when I sit, I can actually feel it right now that I'm actually kind of leaning a little bit this way on this cushion. Right? And so you can understand the body and its posture in such deep, refined ways. When I'm standing, because I do lots of walking meditation, I can feel the tendons in my calves keeping my body upright. So people think that when you're just standing straight, you're just standing straight. But actually, when you pay attention, it's like really the body is kind of going like this. And the tendons and the joints are all kind of moving to keep the balance of the body. Right? This is to start to understand this body and its postures very deeply, to really know these things. This is a place to begin with your sati, with your mindfulness. The next is sampajanya. Sampajanya, again, as I said, this is often in a compound word with sati. Sati sampajanya. You read the suttas in Pali, that's what you'll see. Sati sampajanya. Sampajanya means to have clear awareness. Again, this is a deep awareness, to very clearly understand what is happening. And so the Buddha gives a list of things. It says, when you are walking, standing, lying down, sitting, when you're going from here to there, when you're stretching the limbs, putting on the clothes, even when you're going to the bathroom, urinating and defecating, one should be clearly aware of what you are doing. Oh, also when eating. I missed that one. Eating comes first, then the urinating and the defecating. But we should understand that this is what is happening. This is how our body is. This is what are the activities that we're engaging in. And to fully understand, to see with clear comprehension what is happening. So next time you eat, try to do so with mindfulness and not looking at your phone, reading the newspaper. Next time you go to the bathroom, try to do so with mindfulness, not looking at your phone, or reading a newspaper. All of these activities, to fully and truly understand how these things work and to know them very deeply. No matter what activity you're doing. If you're familiar with Ajahn Chah, which is Bhante Sudaso's teacher's teacher, Ajahn Chah was very big on mindfulness in all activities. That's Satipatthana. No matter what you're doing, to have sati. You can, if you practice Satipatthana every day, you make it such a habit that sati is like your shadow. It's always there. I've had experiences when I was a layperson and I was working and I was in very serious situations. I worked at Child Protective Services. Sometimes I had to remove a child or be in a situation where I could be in danger and other people could be in danger. And I had been practicing for years, even up to this point of the example I'm going to give. And I can remember I'd be a little, be in a situation, okay, very on edge, very okay. I have to talk to the police. I have to talk to my supervisor. I have to talk to the parents. So I'm doing all these things. And then it's like somebody comes and knocks me on the head. Like mindfulness says, hey, remember me? You should be using me right now. And then all of a sudden, oh, I should be mindful. This is the most important time to be mindful. Right? And this happened because I trained Satipatthana to a very strong degree that it was always with me. My mindfulness is like my shadow. Even when I forget to be mindful, oftentimes the part of my mind will come up and say, hey, you should be mindful, remember? I say, oh yes, okay, let's be mindful. Let's not forget Satipatthana. Very important. And so if you're following along in the suttas, we did mindfulness of breathing, we did the postures, we did the what Bhante Sujato translates as situational awareness. Not my favorite translation, because I actually practice situational awareness is a very specific thing. To train yourself to be aware of everything going on around you. Usually, if you're do stuff like police and military and stuff like that, you're trained in that. It's not quite exactly what Sampajanya is, but Bhante Sujato tries to translate in kind of more easy ways for people to understand. But the next one is here focusing on the repulsive, right? So the Pali word here, patikula manasikara, very important Pali word. Bhikkhu Bodhi translated as repulsive. Bhante Sujato translates as repulsive. And it can be translated as repulsive, but I think in English, what this does is really it points us to an extreme that the Buddha is not necessarily trying to have us inculcate as what we need to understand about the body. So this is the 32 parts of the body section. Patikula manasikara. Manasikara means to contemplate, to investigate, to reflect. Patikula can mean repulsive, but it can also mean the opposite. In a sutta called Delicate, the Buddha says that when he reflected, this is while he was a bodhisattva, before he started his journey, right? When he was still among the three mansions, enjoying the hedonistic life. And he reflected on that, how humans, that we have a intoxication with health, an intoxication with youth, an intoxication with life. So normally we have an intoxication with the body. We want healthy, strong bodies. We like our body. We like the bodies of others that we find attractive. We're intoxicated with the body. And so in this section, the Buddha is asking us to reflect on the opposite. We're usually so focused on the pleasant aspects of body. Oh, their hair is so nice. It feels so nice to touch. And oh, it smells so nice. Oh, their eyes are such and such, and these kind of things. The Buddha is like wanting us to balance the scale. So it's like we're all up in this intoxication, and we're not viewing the body for what it is. So the Buddha wants us to even the scales out by reflecting on all the parts of the body that we normally avoid. So he wants us to reflect on the parts of the body, the skin, the nails, the hair. Oh, there's hair right there. The teeth. Right? Then the insides. All the different aspects. The Buddha gives, 31 is the oldest, then 32 is traditional. But really, you don't really need to focus on, I have to memorize these exact 32, and then I have to, what this is about is understanding the body, right? You can go on your phone and download an anatomy app, and you can reflect on, there's all kinds of, there's hundreds of parts of the body. Right? So it's not about, I need to memorize the exact number and the exact Pali words. That's not what this is about. This is reflecting. Oh, this is a body. This body, this is skin, and there's bones here, right? And there's muscles here. Right? It's all these just pieces of rupa, these pieces of form that have coalesced together. Right? Then you have the lungs and the heart and the intestines and the stomach and all of these parts of the body. That's what this body is. In my experience, though, after practicing these practices for many, many years, like at this point, probably at least 14 years, what this body is, it's just a biological machine. It's like no different than a car, right? The person, a skilled mechanic knows how to tinker with a car. A skilled doctor, surgeon knows how to tinker with the human body. That's what this is. It's a coming together of various causes and conditions, and parts of the body have different functions that keep this body healthy and keep this body moving. And so there's a simile that's attached to this that I think is very important, because this simile that the Buddha gives shows us exactly why we want to practice this understanding, reflecting on the parts of the body. So I'm going to read this simile because it's important. I can summarize it because I love this simile and I teach it often, but I think it's very important to hear the words directly so you can understand. This is from the Sutta Central link that I sent you. It is as if there were a bag with openings on both ends, filled with various kinds of grain, such as fine rice, wheat, mung beans, peas, sesame, and ordinary rice. And someone with good eyesight were to open it and to examine the contents. These grains are fine rice, these are wheat, these are mung beans, these are peas, these are sesame, these are ordinary rice. And in this way, this is how they meditate, observing an aspect of the body. So, and I'll open this up for a question. If you have the answer, type it in the chat. What's missing? Knowing the original translation and understanding this simile, what's missing from this simile? Anybody care to take a guess? I don't see anything in the chat. So how about here at Empty Cloud? Anybody want to take a guess as to what's missing in that simile?
The disgusting nature.
Correct. Exactly. Correct. It's not, oh, this is mung beans. Oh, I hate mung beans. Oh, this is red rice. Oh, I like red rice. Right? It's not about likes and dislikes. It's not about attraction and repulsion or disgusting. It's about understanding what you are seeing clearly. This body. Oh, this body has lungs. This body has a respiratory system. This body has a circulatory system that brings the veins bring the blood all around the body, right? This body has this. This body has that. It's to fully understand what this body is. If you become disgusted with the body, you've gone too far. I think there's many, many Buddhist people here from all over the world. You know the story of when the Buddha taught mindfulness of death practices to the monks. And then he went into seclusion. And the monks were practicing mindfulness of death. And they became so disgusted with their bodies that they killed themselves. Or they asked others to kill them. They were so disgusted with their bodies. And then the Buddha comes out a month later, looks around, and says, Ananda, where did everybody go? Right? And Ananda told them what happened. And then it goes right from that to then the Buddha says, monks, practicing anapanasati is of good fruit and benefit. Right? So we see from this story that there's a balancing act. Becoming disgusted with your body, that's not good. You have to live in this body for the rest of your life. Right? It's just about balancing the scales. Yes, there's pleasant things about this body, and this mind finds things about other people's body attractive. Sure. But there's also unpleasant things about the body. Right? Nobody, defecates or urinates and says, "Oh, look at these very pleasant things that have just been excreted from my body." Right? Who does that? Well, some people might. There's a lot of interesting people in the world, but mostly we see it as a disgusting thing. But it's not disgusting or attractive. It simply is. This is what this body is. This body does this. This body needs foods, nutrients in the form of food that comes in this mouth, and it goes down and it gets processed in the stomach, in the intestines, and all the nutrients get, pushed into the body so that the body can continue to be healthy and work. And then whatever's left is pushed out the other end. Right? This is normal. People might say, "Oh, Bhante's talking about disgusting things," right? It's just normal. If you listen to Ajahn Chah talks, you see that he'll talk about these kind of things all the time. It's just normal. It's so that we have a balance and understanding of this body. That's the importance of these practices. When we get into like mindfulness of death practices, or what we're going to do the next two, we still have two more parts of the body to go through here under Kayanupassana. So the next is reflecting on the elements. So in this body, there's earth. Earth element is the rupa, the form, like the skin, these bones, the muscle, right? That's the form. That's the earth element. The water element, the liquid, the saliva in the mouth, right? All the liquids that are going through this body. Right? They say that like the body is like 70% liquid. All the liquids that are excreted from the body. So you reflect, okay, this body has the water element. The wind element. This body has the wind. Gaseousness in the stomach and the intestines, that come out the other end. Various, gases and winds that are in the body, in the intestines, all these kind of things. You can reflect on that. And then the fire element, the temperature of the body. If you've ever touched a corpse, right, you see in the Buddhist, in the suttas, the word is that the life element is not there. The life element has, gone. In Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha renounces the life element so that he could then pass away in the month, right? So when we understand, like, okay, this is the heat in the body. And then when maybe you get sick and you have a temperature, the body is hotter than normal. I can feel it, or the body is lower than normal, not too much lower. You need at least the basic, 98.5, I think it is 98.6 to maintain the life. But you can understand it. The fire element is this heat in the body. And you can also reflect on it as, warmth, or, cold, I need to cover up, right? I have less warmth. You can understand the fire element in that way. And then finally, the last section is the section on charnel ground contemplation. So keep in mind, reflecting, understand so far, we're in the section on Kayanupassana. It's all about the body. Every single practice has been a way to understand the body. The breath, the posture, all of your activities, the parts of the body, the elements of the body. This is so that we come to a deep understanding of what this body is. We understand it very deeply. So people will like monks will think, oh, it's like, oh, like I'll like on Buddhist forums, especially young men, they'll be like, how do I destroy my lust? Right? How do I, lower my sexual feelings and all these things? And that's the wrong way of seeing things. The right way of seeing things is to understand that this human body is a developed animal. We have drives. Body has the drive to eat. Body has the drive to drink, to sleep, to procreate. Right? Sexual urges. This is normal in the body. This is to understand that this is what the body does. This is what the body is. If you don't like it, you got to become awakened so you're not born in another body again. Or else you're just stuck back in it. When you do these practices, you understand this is the body. It's just absolutely normal that I'm stuck having these drives. But since I'm a Buddhist practitioner, I'm following the Noble Eightfold Path. How do I learn to engage with these drives in a skillful way? Some of you may know that I, have lots of food issues. At one point, I was 370 pounds earlier in my life. Food, to me, I like food. Food tastes good, but it's also like a friend. It's also like a drug. Like if you experience something unpleasant, you go to the refrigerator and get some nice ice cream, right? So the body needs food to eat. But I have a diluted relationship with eating in the body. That's how it is. I can't run away from that because this body needs food to live. So how do I act skillfully regarding food and the body? How do I act skillfully regarding sexual activity in the body? How do I act skillfully in all of these ways? That's what this is trying to reflect on, to understand. I'm stuck in this body. These things are normal for a body. How do I live in a skillful way? And then the charnel ground contemplations, the last one, also has us reflect on something very normal for bodies. What happens to this body after we die? In the modern age, we have all kinds of ways. When a body dies, we don't see the body. The body gets, puts in the hearse, goes to the funeral home, and they inject it with all kinds of formaldehyde and all kinds of things to preserve it. Right? And then, they put nice makeup on the body, give it some color. This corpse, right? And then they have the open casket and you can go. I remember being at a funeral. I've been to many, 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 many funerals in my life. And I can remember being at a funeral and somebody was like, we were at the open casket and somebody makes the comment like, they look better now than they did a week ago. I was like, it was such a funny, absurd statement, but it was a nature of, so like this person was dying and very sick and very pale and emaciated, but now their corpse is nice and propped up, right? And so, but that's humans interfering with what is nature. Even the Egyptians, right? The Egyptians figured out a way to preserve their pharaohs so that 3,000, 4,000 years later, we can go to the museum and see them, right? We try to figure out all these ways. But if you were simply in nature and you died, what would happen? That's what this last reflection is. The charnel ground, the 9 steps of the reflection of the decomposition of the body. Reflect, when this body dies, it goes through a natural process. One of the first processes is that it gets bloated up because all the liquids in all the body parts, all the organs starts to come out. And so the body gets filled. I actually saw this in somebody who was still alive at the end stages of cancer, right? They're intubated, they're in the thing, but they went from being like 100 and some odd pounds looking to looking like they were like me when I was 300 some odd pounds, right? And that's how they died, like that, this huge thing. That's like kind of like the normal part of the body. And when I talk about these things, you might be experiencing disgust, revulsion. That's normal because most people are not around death anymore. This is how the body is. It's not disgusting. It's not pleasant. It just is. So then what starts to happen is, if it's out in the wild, animals come. There's animals that fill their niche in nature. Their job in nature is to clean the place up. Right? They come and they start gnawing, they start eating the body. And then all there's left is just like bones and little bits of flesh and tendons and sinews. And then over time, right, the flesh rots away, the bone starts to become disentangled, the joints, everything starts to break away. And then in the later stages of the 9 stages of contemplation, the bones are everywhere. Here a ham bone, there a jaw bone, here a femur, here a this, here a that, there a bone, here a bone, everywhere a bone. And then the contemplation moves towards the bones become bleached with age, then they start to rot, and then they become dust. All we are is dust in the wind, as the old song says, right? So with the contemplation is you're reflecting on this body, how it literally becomes dust. It becomes as if it was never there. That's a powerful contemplation, to reflect that this is the nature of the body. And no matter how we beautify the body, how we preserve the body, we put them in a nice sturdy casket under the ground. It might take thousands of years, but eventually that casket breaks. And the various worms and bugs get into the casket. And then the body eventually decomposes. But anybody who knew that body or cared about that body is long gone by then, in these very fancy, expensive coffins. So this is Satipatthana, Kayanupassana, reflecting on the body and the aspects of the body, to fully understand, to know very deeply what this body is. This body is simply a biological machine. This body is simply the coming together of various causes and conditions that has evolved over millions of years to be in a certain way. The organs exist for a reason. Everything exists for a reason, to keep this body going. And this body is subject to illness. It's subject to falling apart like everything else. This is the nature of the body. And the more you reflect on this, the more you practice this, the more you understand the body, the more at peace you are with the body. It's just the way it is. Oh, I got COVID. Well, it's just the way it is. Oh, I'm growing old now. I need glasses to see close. Just the way it is. Me getting frustrated over it just causes me more suffering. Why would Why cause myself suffering? This is important to understand. Very important to understand. So I'm going to end here. We have 10 minutes. And anybody who has any questions or anything you'd like me to clarify, you can please type that in the chat. Sorry for not explaining that beforehand. But if you have any questions, we can spend the last couple of minutes going over them. All right. We have a Buddhist monk from Bangladesh saying hello. I've been lucky enough to have many experiences with Bangladeshi Buddhist people, a minority Buddhist country, minority Buddhists in the country who go through a lot of stuff. There's lots of persecution of them and things like that. And they're so very joyous people. I love being around Bangladeshi Buddhists. Very joyous, very sincere practitioners of the Dhamma. So it's nice to meet a fellow Bhante. All right, so we have two questions. The first, Laura has a question. I'm going to skip hers for now because it's a bit more complicated. I want to go to do the easier question first. Had any householder become anagami or arahant during the Buddhist times? So yes, I know. Yeah, householder. If you're a Buddhist person, you understand. Householder is how that word is used in the suttas. It means a lay person. And so this is yes, yeah. Householders is very common for lay people in the time of the Buddha. I don't want to say very common. I shouldn't say very common, but you see it in the suttas where lay people become sotipannas, stream enters. They become once returners, non-returners. Very, 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 very rarely does a lay person become an awakened being. It is possible, but it's extremely rare. You see it like maybe 2 times in the suttas and in the monastic rules. And basically, as soon in the suttas and the monastic rules, when a lay person becomes awakened, they basically are like, there's no point for me in the lay life. And they just instantly become a monastic and they live out the rest of their days. Like that. So I think this is maybe a commentarial thing that says like they have to become a monastic within 7 days or else their head explodes or something like this. First off, that wouldn't really matter one bit to an arahant. Who cares? They're awakened. Their job is done. If their head explodes in 7 days, it doesn't matter. Like it's a silly thing. But in general, an awakened being has no use for the lay life. There's no point in being in lay life. So they naturally will live the rest of their days among the Sangha. It makes sense. Sid has a question. Just like the body, are there other things like thoughts that are also subject to causes and conditions, and they come up and go based on their own causes? Yes. We'll talk more about that 2 more weeks when we go over Kayanupassana, when we talk about the mind. Do you Amarante asked, do you recommend doing the 6 elements of the body instead of doing the repulsion of the body? I recommend doing both. These are not either ors. You can practice all of the practices that are given in Satipatthana. Where do non-returners go? They go to the heavenly abodes where they can live out their last bits and become awakened. Sudas, can you clarify how this contemplation works with metta and developing wholesome qualities of the mind? Again, probably we'll talk about that more in 2 weeks. But when you understand what the body is, right, you can have metta for your body. It's like, oh, this body is just going to be sick. It's going to, I'm going to have an attraction. I see a beautiful, whatever, man, woman, whatever you're attracted to. Oh, there's an attraction there. It's just the nature of things. And it's to understand. It's to really, and you say, okay, I have metta, treat my body as a friend. It's like, okay, this is normal. You have you're a monk. You're not supposed to have any, attractions that arise in the mind. That doesn't actually exist anyway, by the way. Unless you're an awakened being, you're going to have attractions that arise in the mind. That's normal. And then you understand, oh, okay, well, I have metta for myself, and I'm going to, make sure that I act very skillfully. That's all. So you can have metta for yourself in these regards. We could talk about that more another time. I keep forgetting to put, I'm not used to, this is only the second time using StreamYard, and I'm not used to being able to put the questions on the screen. So I'm sorry for everybody that I haven't put the questions on the screen. Vasily says, thank you for the Dhamma talk. Should we have a goal in life? How do we not get attached to that goal while making sure we get there? Yes, you need goals in life. You need aspirations. The Buddha gives us all kinds of goals. Like if you see, like you read the suttas, you see the Buddha gives us all kinds of things to aspire to. Like when we're being sawed in half, to not have any anger in our mind, right? The Kakachupama Sutta, the simile of the saw, right? To how to, there's all kinds of ideals that we have above us that we should strive towards. That's how we become better in life. If you don't have any ideals and you don't have any meaning, you just sit around doing nothing. You become hedonist. It doesn't care if you kill people, whatever. It doesn't matter. So you need goals. You need structure. You need something to strive for in life. That's very important. The other important thing, though, is you can't become too rigid and attached to those goals. Because if you try to keep yourself straight, normally this is what happened. Here's your goal. And you're aiming towards that goal in life, whatever it is. I want to start my own business. I want to become CEO of the company, and whatever that is, right? And you're aiming towards it. But in life, what happens is this. You're getting off. You get like a zigzag. But you're still progressing. You're still moving towards the target, right? Same thing on the Buddhist path. If you follow the Noble Eightfold Path, same exact thing, like this. Like, oh, I'm following the path very well. Oh, now I'm doing whatever. Oh, I got to get back on the path. Doing well. Oh, so that's normal. That's the nature of things. But you keep the goal in mind and you try to do your best to steer yourself towards that. And also you have to know when to balance. If you're being too hard on yourself, pushing yourself too hard, or when you're not pushing yourself hard enough. It's a balancing act, and it takes wisdom that you develop over time to know how to keep yourself balanced and keep going forward. All right, so now we'll go back to Laura's question. So Laura has a question about the recent shootings in Texas, and says many people are suffering. It was not a natural death. What is the Buddhist perspective on this level of loss and evil? So the Buddhist perspective is simply that death can come for us at any time. This is why we practice mindfulness of death practices. It doesn't matter if you're in the womb, how many millions of babies are aborted or they have miscarriages. I know my family members and friends who have had a baby and they miscarriage right before they could be born. Right? Many ways that beings die in the womb. And then I would work child protective services. I had children under my cases who died of what? SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. Or they died from abusive people. And then as you get older, you become a teenager, you can die. You start driving. Oh, I'm driving. Then you're in an accident. And maybe you have 3 or 4 other teenagers with you in the car, and 4 teenagers die. And you get older, more ways you can die. This is simply the nature of how things are. That at any time you can die. And that's why we reflect on these things. And it's just not natural death. Like the Buddha will, in Mindfulness of Death Sutta, the Buddha says, you should reflect on there are many ways I can die. I can get bit by a scorpion. I could have bad food. Somebody could kill me. These things, you reflect on these things. And this way, what this allows us to do is to live skillfully, to not take our loved ones for granted. The Buddha tells us that we will be separated from everyone that we love eventually. We don't know how much time we have with our loved ones. So when we reflect on that, we don't take the time that we have with our loved ones for granted. We don't bicker and argue over silly things. Life is short. You can die in any infinite numbers of ways. And so we reflect on these things. We really understand these things so that we know how to live well, to live skillfully. Right? To do good deeds in honor of the people that we've lost, that we've become separated from. This is simply the nature of life. Because we're born, we have to die. There's a famous saying in the suttas that many monastics teach and repeat. Life is uncertain, but death is certain. In one of our chantings, it says, death is always hounding us like a murderer after its foe, after its target. Death is always ready there. Maybe you've seen those old movies, what they call Final Destination, right? Where people escape death, and then death is this object that like all kinds of things are happening to try to, because the people needed to die. This is how it is, right? And so we have experiences like what happened with this shooting. And, if it was whatever, a rock slide, like in England, like 60 years ago, there was some kind of a mountain rock slide that killed a whole school of kids, and it was a big tragedy. But people can understand, if it's a natural thing, if it's nature, if a hurricane comes and kills a bunch of people, it's horrible, but it's a bit more understandable. the malice of humans is harder for people to understand. Not only the malice of humans, but the mind, various, again, I work child protective services, so I worked with people with all kinds of mental health issues, all kinds of problems, all kinds of things that really hamper them in being able to act skillfully in the world. And some things we can do something about it. Some things we can't do something about it. We have to have the wisdom, like that old Catholic prayer, give me the wisdom to understand what I can change and what I can't. People dying is never going to change. We might be able to do things to stop more people from dying. Maybe we want to minimize that. Maybe we want to do things that can be beneficial and cause less people to die. That's what humanity's been doing throughout our history. So that's why we have things like antibiotics, saved millions and millions of people, things like this. But this is how things are. This is how we are to understand that there are various causes and conditions that bring about things that occur in the world. This is the nature of things. There are people with mental illnesses. There are people with hate in their heart. There are people with resentment. And when you are filled with these things, not even somebody without mental illness, somebody who is able to see and understand clearly all of the time, if you have malice and hate, you can still do lots of horrible things. Or if you dehumanize other people, if you look at all the genocides in the world, the Nazis, the communists, whatever, people are dehumanized first. These are not human beings. And so when a person has been trained over time that these are not human beings, or they're so resentful of life, living in general, and humans are a virus on the planet. We're better off if we were all dead, right? If you have a mindset like that, which a lot of people seem to do these days, people who are so-called very, caring about like animals and the planets, but if humans all died, they wouldn't care, right? Like that mindset, of course, why don't we just genocide a bunch of million people? It'll be better for the planet, right? There's lots of really negative, unskillful mind states that can, and dehumanization that can cause people to do a lot of bad things. And this is why people, oh boy, I've gone way over time. But this was an important question. It was a timely question. I felt like I wanted to address it and not just, okay, so just two more things. Laura has two more questions and then we'll end. What happens to the victims and the perpetrators in their next lives? Wherever they're born or however they're born in their next lives depends on their karma. And you should understand that not you say, well, they're just kids. What karma did they build? They built some karma, but how you're born in whatever next life doesn't necessarily have to do with what the life right before it. Karma from 80 million years ago could come forward and say, okay, this is now what this karma is going to determine how you're born, right? So where they're born, how they're going to be born could be anywhere in the Buddhist cosmology, depending on their previous karma. Laura asked a question, do the victims get closer to enlightenment? No, I wouldn't say that they get closer to enlightenment per se? Does the perpetrator get further from enlightenment? Yes and no. Anybody who kills builds very, very negative karma, very bad karma, and that will bear fruit either later in this life or in future lives. The Buddha does not approve of any kind of killing whatsoever, any kind of killing, even if it's in self-defense. You may end up doing it in self-defense, but you still build negative karma. Right. And that's a hard thing to, you think, oh, well, maybe this was a justified thing. This person was shooting people and then I shot them. That's a good thing. Well, yes, in some aspects, maybe, yes. But on the other hand, you also killed somebody. So the only thing that the Buddha approves of killing is anger. That's it. So we should try to avoid killing at all costs because it brings very much negative karma. Very, very bad karma, killing. Not a good thing. All right, friends. So that's it. We're over time. So we're back again tonight for Monk Chat, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So you can come and ask more questions if you like about all these topics, no problem. So see you then. Until next time, friends, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again.